bring it back, 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 bring it back.
Hello and welcome to the round 23 edition of NRL Rewind. I am Phil Whitehead, and I just quickly want to get this one off with a quick apology. I know this video is a little bit later getting up than what I would have hoped. I really want to try from this point forward getting each episode up by Tuesday. I've had a pretty busy week, so this one's been held up a little bit. But as usual, a lot to talk about, a lot of action coming out of this weekend, so let's get it all underway with a look at all the weekend's action with the weekly wrap. The showcase game of the round kicked things off on Friday night in Townsville, and it was a memorable night for Darren Lockyer as the Broncos would dominate from start to finish in his record-breaking 350th match for Brisbane since his debut in round 13 of 1995. Promising young fullback Josh Hoffman was the standout, bagging 3 tries. The Broncos now look to have secured a top 4 finish, while Jonathan Thurston will no doubt be better for the run after not playing since his injury in Origin 3. I still expect the Cowboys to finish 4th and cause their share of headaches in the finals. In a battle of the West, the Tigers have continued to make light work of their buttery soft run to the finals, this time surviving the resistance of a plucky but severely undermanned Panthers. An unsighted knock-on by Blake Ayshford, which led to a try by Robbie Farah, seemed to break the Panthers' spirit just as they appeared to be right in the contest. The Tigers look far less dangerous without Chris Lawrence, but the performance of back rower Gareth Ellis proved that having him fit and firing through the finals is critical if Wests are to defy the experts. The Gold Coast hosted a first versus last clash on Saturday afternoon that comfortably lived up to expectation. The Storm steamrolled the Titans with ruthless precision and had the game comfortably in hand by half-time. Melbourne's ability to send big men at little men in attack is second to none at the moment. As a result, Preston Campbell saw too much of Sikamanu for his liking in his 100th game for the Titans. Cooper Cronk was outstanding, scoring 3 tries and throwing a spectacular no-look pass for Billy Slater. But an ankle injury will keep him out of next week's game against the Dragons. Across the Tasman now, and the New Zealand Warriors survived a huge scare from the Newcastle Knights after coming back to win from 12-4 down at half-time. Both sides had tries awarded in contentious circumstances, but it was the home side who were able to produce the big plays to close out the match. Sean Johnson continues to develop with each game and looks on course to be the best option at number 7 for the Warriors since the departure of Stacey Jones. The New Zealanders now look to have assured its final spot, while Newcastle should be able to ward off the challenges of Souths and Canterbury to hold on to 8th. An upset looked to be on the cards when the 15th placed Eels found themselves up 10-0 early and 14-6 up at half-time against the 2nd placed Manly at Parramatta Stadium. It was clear from the outset that Manly were off their game, with an uncharacteristic number of errors committed by the Sea Eagles. Des Hasler urged his troops to find their focus, and they did so with an emphatic 20 unanswered points from 13 of 13 completions to start the second half, including a contender for Team Try of the Year, finished by a flying Brett Stewart. Manly looked complacent and out of sorts for 60 minutes of this contest, and the game for the most part was not of a high standard. Parramatta must be hoping Daniel Mortimer finds some form fast, as the second attempt at turning Jared Hayne into a 5/8 already looks to be on borrowed time. Nathan Merritt made it 8 tries in 2 weeks as he collected a second-half hat-trick in South's demolition of the Canberra Raiders. The Rabbitohs have now scored an incredible 137 points in the last 3 rounds, which has to have their supporters asking 2 questions. Where was this form when they were a genuine chance of making the finals, and how exactly did they let Chris Sando sign with Parramatta? For the Raiders, a miserable week has been made worse today with news that inspirational skipper and club stalwart Alan Tongue will retire at the end of the season. It seemed unthinkable just a few weeks ago, but the defending premiers are now in a complete tailspin, following their loss to the Roosters on Sunday. This was the 4th loss in a row for the Dragons, who have only managed to win 2 of their last 10 matches. The finger of blame is being aimed squarely at New South Wales 5/8 Jamie Soward, whose productivity has dropped alarmingly since the Origin period. On the other side of the coin, this result was the perfect tonic for the Roosters after suspending stars Todd Carney, Nate Miles and Frank Paul Nuwasala. With results like this, there might not be any rush to reinstate them from the doghouse. Speaking of the doghouse, Canterbury have kept their wafer-thin finals hopes on life support by inflicting a 5th straight loss to Cronulla. It's hard to imagine that even the Dogs themselves actually believe they can make the top 8, and if they do, they certainly didn't play like it, in spite of the fact that they won the match. Highlights in this match were few and far between, but I will be talking about one specific event in this match a little later in this video. So to the ladder after round 23. Melbourne continue to march toward the minor premiership, with the top 3 looking unshiftable. The Rabbitohs' recent play has certainly caught the eye, but looking at the remaining games for Newcastle, Souths and Canterbury, Newcastle still look pretty sure to remain in the top 8. Now it's time for the rant of the week, and out of Monday night's game between the Bulldogs and the Sharks, there was a highlight, a tackle by Frank Pritchard on Cronulla 5'8" Wade Graham that absolutely shook the foundations of Toyota Park. Now, I was dumbfounded at the time that there was a penalty given for this tackle. I was even more disappointed, I think is probably the word, after the match when I got back and read the comments on certain forums from, funnily enough, a Cronulla supporter and other Cronulla supporters saying that Frank Pritchard should have been sent off for this hit. Now, exactly how soft are we trying to make the game? Is this supposed to be a hard game, a tough game, the toughest sport of all, we'd like to think, played by the toughest men in any sport in the world, and yet year by year we seem to be trying to make the game softer and softer. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to turn around and say that we should be more lenient on spear tackles or head high tackles or anything like that. Those rules are in place, they're in place to protect the players, and I understand that. But when you're sending someone to the judiciary for minimal and incidental contact with the head that was not aimed at the head, and where the primary contact of the tackle was not on the head, I mean, he's hit him square in the shoulders, and he's probably got more of his chest than he got of his head. I don't see where they can justify having charged Frank Pritchard for the tackle. Thankfully, with the timing of this video, I can tell you that sanity has prevailed and the judiciary has downgraded the charge so that Frank Pritchard is not going to miss this weekend's match against Manly. I have no problem with the fact that Frank Pritchard's going to play. I have a huge problem with the fact that the judiciary didn't take one look at the tackle and throw the charge out. That would have been the appropriate response to that idiotic sighting of what was a brilliant tackle. Hopefully that's the last example of this sort of judgment that we see this season. Fearless prediction time now, and I'm going to keep this one short and sweet after it hasn't worked out too well for me in the last 2 weeks. I am going to say, focusing on 2 matches, I'm going to say that Canberra will lose to the Gold Coast Titans up at Carrara Stadium, and the West Tigers, in a result that should surprise absolutely nobody, will handle the Parramatta Eels. So the new favourites for the wooden spoon at the end of next round will be the Parramatta Eels. And that wraps it up for this round 23 edition of NRL Rewind. Thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this account. Also don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And I'll be back next week for the wrap-up of round 24 and also a look ahead to the 2011 Dally M Awards. Catch you then.